I will, as Loretta said, I will present the report of that the next generation engineers has compiled. But actually, you shouldn't look too much on me when I'm speaking, because the people that has done the work are the one that now appears on the screen. And I'm actually presenting this report on behalf of all these excellent young engineers that have spent time working on these case studies, doing an excellent job in my opinion. However, I'm a little bit biased. And there is unfortunately some people that I didn't have pictures of. So that's why you can see those up there on the end. When we started out in 2021, we had quite a challenging work in front of us. And we should do a lot of things. We should analyze a real project according to the new Eurocode 7. We should use default partial model factors, and we should indicate whether the results were in the right range. And yes, that has TGB1 accomplished. They have also compared their result with the current version of Eurocode 7, the first generation. They should prepare geotechnical design reports according to the second generation for their case studies. And I say we partly done that because we agreed on that we did not do geotechnical design reports for all the different cases that we actually analyzed and formed the base for our discussions, but some of them are there in the report. We should document the design process. Yes, we've done that. We should report on comment improvements. We should report on ease of use. And we should provide a judgment of the ease of use. And we should also take a look at the reporting. This was the large task that the task group brought on themselves from the beginning. To do that, of course, it's a huge amount of work, considering that we actually have multiple different types of structures as geotechnical engineers. So that's why we divided ourselves into 8 different subgroups. And then we also divided the Eurocode into 4 different parts, not Eurocode 0 and 1997, 1, 2, and 3, but we say this part is about input, this part is the basis of design, this is about analysis, and this is about reporting, because you find information in all 4 different Eurocode parts about these topics. So you have to look at them in a process sort of thing as well when you do your technical design. And that's what we do. And as you can see also, we started out in 2021 doing the review of the PT draft. So that's where we started. And on that one I will show what the TGB1 did with that report. So some of the case studies that are in the report are based on the PT draft. And then later on, we also did some work on the formal vote draft, the final version, checking what has been updated and what were still there. But you can imagine that doing the case studies on the PT draft and at the same time the process EC7 were really heavily involved working on the draft, developing consistently. So, sorry to say, but it was a little bit like tracing a moving target, trying to do these case studies, because as soon as you had written something down, you could be sure that it had already been discussed in some other TG and were under consideration of updating. So it was a little bit difficult to do the case studies, but I think we managed very well and got out some of the most important items there that needed considerations. And here we have the geotechnical design report that we have decided to include in the GRC report. But as I say, additional case studies were analyzed and formed the basis for the discussions. And please note, this is case studies of real project. This is not a schoolbook example. so they should not be used as a schoolbook example. But they give you a real test of the code. Does the code really work? That's what they are doing. So, what did we do with the first PT draft? Well, you can imagine when we sit down and try to use the text from the PT draft, of course, we identify a lot of bugs. And all those bugs were identified and transferred to the editors, telling them that these need to be considered. They did some pros and cons of the second and first generation. We thought about how applicable are these texts for the structures we are actually designing, making sure that it actually works for all types of structure, not just one type. And it ended up that we prepared, as many of you know, the change request. We made quite a few of them, and as you can see on the screen also, I would say that all of them either were accepted or partly accepted, so they actually influence the final version of the formal vote draft. And then we're coming back to the formal vote draft. Here on the screen you can see our attempt to visualize the impression of the ease of use and applicability of the code. It's not scientific, but it's a way to visualize what we thought about it. But of course, some of the ranking here is based on maybe too few case studies to be really scientific, but some of them are really very well, there is a lot of information behind these. And as you can see, ease of use is well above average for all four things: input, basis of designs, analyze, and reporting, and the applicability as well. So the verdict from the TGB one were that actually the formal vote draft, after improving it from the PT draft, it's actually ease of use and applicability more than the current version of Eurocode. So we have made an improvement from current version here. But let's take a look forward now. What is the recommendation from TGB1? These engineers that actually will be the ones using Eurocode 7 second generation for many years in future, what are their main recommendations to facilitate the use of the Eurocode? When we start applying these in our countries, make sure that you have all three parts of Eurocode 7 and Eurocode 0 on your desk, because there is a lot of references between them. Please prepare some nice flow charts, and maybe we will see some examples of that, to actually guide you through these 4 different documents. And basically, there might be a need for concise national guidelines to be prepared, to have a clear workflow based on your national application as well. In addition to this, what were also mentioned by the TGB engineers, B1 engineers, was that there is a need for additional guidelines. Things that were not appropriate at this stage to put into the Eurocode on European level, but is really something that we need to think about in the future, and you need to think about on national level. And sustainability, a concept that is highly important for us today, but still is a little bit strange to most engineers. How do I actually do that as an engineer in my design? So we need to clarify how do we do that in our design. Robustness is another tricky word. Could mean quite different things for different engineers, but you still need to make sure that you have the same understanding on national level on how to do this. Zone of influence, a very tricky word. For some people, it's just this zone of ground investigation, but it's also zone of influence for this impact within the zone of influence, and it's also groundwater influence. Here we also need to make sure that we speak the same language on national level. Material and product guidance. With our new materials in the code, like reinforced fill, we don't say much about fill engineers, the material, the fill, and the rock balls. There need for more information on those. Maybe something you can solve on national level. And for the application of ground improvement, they say that it would be useful to actually have clear examples on national level of the 4 different types. So conclusion, TGB1 has extensively evaluated the second generation of Eurocode 7. They have identified key issues to be improved, and most of it has either been revised in the formal vote draft or will be handled in the national level. And even though I might be a little bit biased here, because I actually have had the pleasure to work with these bright young engineers the last 3 years, I'm really sure that I think that TGB1 significantly contributed to improving the draft. They have done an excellent job, and for that I would like to all of you B1 that are here in the room, I would like to say thank you very much for the work you have done. It's been excellent. And to the rest of you, I would like to say, be sure to attend their presentation this afternoon and tomorrow, and listen to what they have their conclusion of Eurocode 7 second generation. Thank you very much.